For thousands of years, kings and queens loved who they loved, and sometimes that love brought down entire empires. These are 12 royals whose forbidden relationships changed history, from ancient China to 20th century Italy. In 12th place, Emperor Ai of Han China and his court favorite Dongxian left a mark that echoes through centuries of Chinese history. The story begins with a gesture so intimate, it became legend. One morning, rather than disturb Dongxian, who had fallen asleep across his arm, Emperor Ai quietly cut off his own sleeve. That single act gave rise to the enduring phrase, the passion of the cut sleeve, a euphemism for male same-sex love in Chinese culture. But affection at the heart of the empire came at a cost. Over just 6 years, Dongxian rose from a minor official to Grand Minister of Works, granted power and titles at a speed that unsettled the Han court. Senior officials petitioned in protest, warning that favoritism was breeding resentment and instability. By 1 BC, the court had fractured, and after both men died in quick succession, the weakened dynasty was left vulnerable. Within a decade, Wang Mang's coup ended the Han line, a reminder that private love could ripple outward and reshape the fate of an entire empire. In the 11th place, Al-Hakam II presided over Cordoba's golden age with the court shaped by intimate bonds. Chroniclers like Ibn Hayyan and al-Makari describe a caliph surrounded by male companions, often called eunuchs, in the records whose influence reached far beyond the private chambers. Under al-Hakam's reign, Cordoba's library swelled to an astonishing 400,000 volumes, making it the largest in Western Europe. The Great Mosque's expansion, completed around 971, transformed the city's skyline and signaled a new era of architectural ambition. One account lingers on the caliph's nightly gatherings, where poetry and philosophy mingled with affection. These companions were not just confidants, but also curators, translators, and patrons, quietly steering Cordoba's intellectual life. While al-Hakam's power rested on soft influence rather than legal reform, his court's intimacy seeded a cultural flourishing that would echo through Andalusian history. In the 10th place, Philippe I, Duke of Orleans, transformed the French court through a partnership that left its mark on Versailles itself. The Chevalier de Lorraine, Philippe's companion for decades, became a fixture in the palace's inner circles, his influence stretching from personal chambers to the very machinery of royal patronage. Inventories from the 1680s list the Chevalier's gifts and offices, including the lucrative command of castle, while Saint-Simon's memoirs note with a touch of envy how military commissions and pensions flowed to Lorraine's allies. This pattern of favoritism sparked open resentment among the old nobility, who grumbled that the Duke's household is ruled by affection, not merit. Yet Philippe's unashamed intimacy with the Chevalier also shifted the balance of power at court, fueling rival factions and redrawing alliances around the king's brother. The ripples from their relationship never toppled the throne, but they did reshape the politics of patronage, foreshadowing the greater storms that would soon sweep across Europe. Number 9, Queen Christina of Sweden blurred the lines between sovereign, scholar, and lover in a way that confounded her contemporaries. Her letters to Countess Ebba Spar, preserved in the Riksarkivet, pulse with longing. One letter was famously signed, "Farewell, my bedfellow, I kiss you 1,000 times." Christina's refusal to marry, her masculine dress, and her open affection for Spare unsettled the Lutheran court and foreign diplomats alike. In 1654, she stunned Europe by abdicating her throne and converting to Catholicism, a move that sent shockwaves through Protestant Scandinavia. The official explanation cited exhaustion and religious conviction, but private correspondence reveals a deeper struggle with expectations of gender and desire. After leaving Stockholm, Christina poured her considerable fortune into patronizing artists, scientists, and philosophers, transforming Rome into her new court. Her abdication stands apart, not a forced deposition, but a radical act of self-determination, linking personal identity with a shift in religion, culture, and the arts that would echo through the Enlightenment. 8th place belongs to Richard II of England, whose devotion to Robert de Vere ignited a constitutional crisis that would shake the monarchy to its core. In 1386, Richard elevated de Vere to Duke of Ireland and Earl of Oxford, a leap in status that astonished the nobility and left chroniclers like Thomas Walsingham noting the excessive affection between the king and his favorite. The patent rolls confirmed this rapid rise, documenting titles and estates granted in quick succession. Such open favoritism fueled baronial anger, leading to the merciless Parliament of 1388. There, the Lords Appellant forced through ordinances, stripping the king of his closest allies and curbing royal prerogative. Walsingham's chronicle records the moment as one of humiliation and isolation, with Richard's trust in de Vere cited as a prime motive for the revolt. The crisis did not end with parliamentary reform. By 1399, Richard was deposed, forced to abdicate in a process that set a precedent for removing a monarch against his will. The story of Richard and de Vere marks a turning point, where private intimacy at court became the spark for public upheaval and the redefinition of royal power. Number 7, Frederick the Great of Prussia came of age in a court that demanded obedience and punished affection. In 1730, the young crown prince's closest friend, Hans Hermann von Katte, was arrested alongside him after the two plotted to flee the regimented world of Frederick's father. The trial records, preserved in Berlin archives, show that their bond was scrutinized as a threat to royal authority. Frederick was forced to watch Katte's execution, an event that cast a shadow over his life and shaped his understanding of power and loss. When Frederick ascended the throne in 1740, the trauma of that punishment lingered. Instead of perpetuating his father's cruelty, he issued edicts granting religious minorities the right to worship and reformed the legal code to protect subjects from arbitrary arrest. The memory of Katte's fate became a silent driver behind these reforms. In the absence of surviving love letters, the silences in Frederick's personal archive speak volumes. A legacy of repression transformed into a policy of tolerance that redefined the Prussian state. Number 6, Princess Isabella of Parma left behind more than royal titles. Her legacy lingers in a collection of letters that once pulsed with longing and risk. Between 1760 and 1763, more than 200 letters passed between Isabella and her sister-in-law, Maria Christina of Austria. In those pages, Isabella confessed that she loved Maria Christina with all her soul, and she wrote of dreams of living together, free from the burdens of court. The intensity of their bond unsettled the Habsburg family, prompting an order to preserve only select letters while quietly destroying the rest. The surviving correspondence, now locked in Vienna's archives, paints a portrait of devotion that both challenged and threatened dynastic memory. Maria Christina's later rise to power as governor of the Austrian Netherlands was shadowed by whispers about her relationship with Isabella, shaping her reputation and alliances at court. The fate of these letters, some cherished and others suppressed, reveals how royal intimacy could ripple through history, not by changing laws or borders, but by shaping the stories that courts dared to remember and those they tried to erase. In the 5th place, King Charles of Württemberg found his private life swept into the machinery of state surveillance. In the early 1870s, Charles's relationship with Charles Woodcock drew the attention of Bismarck's expanding intelligence network. Police dossiers, now referenced in the Geheimes Staatsarchiv, tracked the king's movements and intercepted letters, building a file labeled for political sensitivity. The partnership was no secret in Stuttgart. Newspapers like the Kreuzzeitung published veiled warnings about the king's unconventional companionship, hinting at scandal without naming names. Behind the scenes, Bismarck's ministry treated Charles's intimacy as a source of leverage, a quiet threat during tense negotiations over southern Germany's place in the new empire. Diplomatic correspondence from the period reveals attempts to pressure Charles into political alignment, with the shadow of exposure always looming. The forced resignation of Woodcock was attempted more than once, each time recorded in confidential reports. In this case, royal affection became a tool for modern bureaucracy, weaponized through surveillance and press leaks, not to topple a dynasty, but to keep one in line. The episode marks a shift from whispered letters to overt blackmail, as the state learned how to turn private desire into public control. Number 4. King Mwanga II of Buganda stands at a crossroads of faith, power, and colonial ambition. In the late 19th century, Mwanga's court operated on a system where royal pages served both as political apprentices and at times as intimate companions to the king. When Christian missionaries arrived, they urged these young men to reject Mwanga's advances, framing their refusal as a test of religious conviction. The result was a confrontation that spiraled into tragedy. Between 1885 and 1887, Mwanga ordered the execution of 45 Christian converts, now remembered as the Uganda martyrs, at Namugongo. Missionary letters and court records describe how the king justified these killings as punishment for insubordination and apostasy, but the underlying conflict centered on the pages' refusal to submit to royal authority in matters both spiritual and personal. The story did not end with their deaths. British colonial officials seized on the narrative, citing the martyrs as evidence of barbaric customs in need of reform. In 1903, the new colonial legal code introduced a sweeping law against unnatural offenses, directly referencing Mwanga's reign as its moral justification. The archives of the Colonial Office and missionary societies preserve the arguments used to frame this legislation, showing how the memory of the executions was weaponized to entrench anti-gay laws across East Africa. In this way, Mwanga's private life and the violence that followed became a template for colonial control, with consequences that echo in legal systems to this day. The legacy of the Uganda martyrs reveals how narratives of sexuality, faith, and empire can be fused into powerful tools of domination, shaping not only the fate of a kingdom, but the laws that would govern generations. Number 3. King Umberto II of Italy faced the collapse of a 1,000-year monarchy under the glare of post-war scandal. In 1945, as Italy struggled to rebuild, a secret dossier was compiled by fascist intelligence and later circulated among political rivals. This file, preserved in the Archivio Centrale dello Stato, cataloged rumors and allegations about Umberto's private life, naming male companions, quoting intercepted letters, and hinting at encounters in diplomatic circles. By the spring of 1946, details from the dossier began to leak into the press. Il Popolo d'Italia ran headlines questioning the moral fitness of the House of Savoy, while parliamentary debates echoed with insinuations of decadence and betrayal. The timing was deliberate, just weeks before Italians voted on whether to keep the monarchy or establish a republic. The referendum turned into a vote on Umberto himself. When the ballots were counted, 53% chose the republic, barely enough to end centuries of royal rule. Historians sifting through parliamentary records and press archives have traced how the weaponization of private rumor tipped the balance at a moment of national uncertainty. For Umberto, the personal and political fused in a single act of public judgment, and the monarchy fell not by coup or revolution, but by a whisper campaign that turned sexuality into a tool of regime change. The fallout set a precedent for the power of mass media and scandal in modern European politics, and left the question of truth, rumor, and justice hanging over Italy's transition to democracy. Number 2. Prince Henry the Navigator stands at the threshold between legend and silence. While later centuries have speculated about his lifelong celibacy and the all-male circles at Sagres, the records from his own time remain deliberately opaque. Zurara's Chronicle, written just decades after Henry's death, describes him as a prince devoted to God and the expansion of Christendom, never mentioning a wife, mistress, or romantic companion of any kind. The Torre do Tombo archives preserve ledgers from the Sagres court, lists of young men employed as pages, navigators, and scholars. Yet these accounts are strictly administrative, offering no hint of scandal or censure. Instead, they track the steady outflow of funds, shipbuilding, voyage sponsorship, and stipends for the men who would chart the African coast. Some modern historians see in this bachelorhood a purposeful construction, a chivalric image that allowed Henry to channel all ambition into exploration rather than dynastic intrigue. Others point to the absence of inquisitorial records or clerical rebuke, noting that in an era when accusations of sodomy could be fatal, such silence is either meaningful discretion or genuine lack of evidence. What is certain is that Henry's private life, whether shaped by desire, faith, or political calculation, left its mark on the world. The Atlantic voyages he bankrolled redrew the map, launching the age of discovery and setting in motion centuries of global change. In his case, ambiguity itself becomes consequential. The unspoken, the unrecorded, the possibility of a hidden intimacy, all these still ripple outward, reminding us that even the most private mysteries can guide the fate of nations. As the list approaches its final entry, Henry's story lingers as a bridge between the secrets of the past and the openness of the present. And finally, in first place, Lord Ivar Mountbatten stands as a living testament to the transformation of queer royal history from secrecy to celebration. In 2016, Lord Ivar became the first member of the extended British royal family to come out publicly. His announcement made headlines from London to Sydney and reached millions through the global press. 2 years later, in 2018, his wedding at Bridwell Park made history again, not only for its open joy, but for the remarkable gesture of his ex-wife, Lady Penny, who walked him down the aisle to marry Sir Leon Kincaid. The photographs from that day, widely shared across social media, marked a sharp break from centuries of coded letters and whispered rumors. For the first time, the intimacy of a royal, same-sex partnership was not hidden or denied, but honored in public and with family support. Yet Lord Ivar's impact extends far beyond personal happiness. As a founding trustee of the Mountbatten Foundation, he has used his platform to advocate for LGBTQ+ rights across the Commonwealth, lending his name and story to campaigns for legal equality in countries where same-sex relationships remain criminalized. In 2024, he and Sir Leon co-authored the Mountbatten-Kincaid Manifesto, calling for the inclusion of a comprehensive equality clause in the revised Commonwealth Charter. The campaign gathered momentum, with endorsements from activists, faith leaders, and fellow aristocrats, culminating in 2025 with the adoption of a new charter article affirming LGBTQ+ rights. Early signs of change are already visible, with legislative reforms in Barbados, Kenya, and Malaysia directly linked to the advocacy sparked by Lord Ivar's example. The shift is measurable not just in headlines, but in policy and public attitudes. Media analytics from the 2018 wedding show a spike in positive coverage of LGBTQ+ issues across Commonwealth outlets, while the Mountbatten Foundation's annual reports detail a surge in donations and engagement after each public milestone. In interviews, Lord Ivar has spoken of the responsibility he feels to use his privilege for change, describing his journey as one small part of a much larger story. That story, traced across the arc of this list, moves from the cut sleeve of Emperor I to the open embrace of a modern English lord. Where love once meant risk, exile, or blackmail, it now inspires legal reform and hope for future generations. Lord Ivar Mountbatten's openness closes the circle. His life is proof that queer love at the heart of royalty can not only survive, but help reshape the laws and values of entire nations. In his example, the long-silenced history of gay royals finds both its vindication and its future. Across all 12 stories, one truth stands out. Queer love has always shaped the destinies of kingdoms. From silent sacrifice to open celebration, these royals prove that same-sex desire is inseparable from the story of power itself. The pattern isn't marginal, it's central. Remembering them isn't just about the past. It's about reclaiming the full, complex humanity that has always ruled our world. Which story moved you most? Let us know below.